Hi everyone, CeeCee here once again for another Donna Downey Studios Artist Gang video. For this project, I've decided to do a 12 by 12 canvas. So it's a little smaller than the one that you see in the back right there, which I have done in my previous video. But this time around, I'm going to be using a very fun technique. I'm going to be using a stencil and masking fluid. So I hope that you'll enjoy this technique. I'm working on a 12 by 12 gallery canvas, which is thicker than the average canvas. Because I'm going to be coloring, I'm applying a coat of white absorbing ground with a paintbrush, and that's going to give me the right texture to capture the paint much like a watercolor paper would do. And then I switched over to a palette knife to give the ground some movement. And for the next step, you really need to dry this piece very thoroughly. We're going to add some masking fluid over that, and if your piece is a little bit wet, the masking fluid will not adhere properly. So I'm using liquid frisket. I also have a small bucket of water and a brush that is strictly reserved for liquid frisket. You will lose that brush, so do not use a good brush. To apply the frisket, you need a damp brush, so that's why I have a small bucket of water next to me, and I dip the brush from time to time into that little bucket. And the way I apply the frisket is I work my way towards the middle, and I will concentrate on the outline, and then I'll remove the stencil and fill in the areas inside. Make sure that you don't leave any empty spaces or air bubbles. And I'm going to create a Crescent Moon mask with a 2.5 circle punch that I punch out of cardstock, and I'm going to keep the actual circle that's going to compose the Crescent Moon, and I'm going to add masking fluid as well inside that shape. To clean the masking fluid on your stencil, you just simply rub it off with your fingers and it's as good as new. I'm adding some stars as well with the masking fluid by flicking the liquid with a paintbrush over my canvas. Once you're done your masking, let that dry thoroughly for at least 2 hours. I'm now ready to watercolor, and I have my rinse well to the right of me, which is a very useful tool when you watercolor because it always gives you nice, fresh, clean water. I'm going over my whole canvas with a big fat brush just to get it going a little bit, and I have my set of Kuretake colors to the left of me, which I'm going to be using for this piece. And I'm switching to a round brush, and all the colors that I'm using will be listed in the supplies list on the blog post. I'm starting with yellow close to the horizon line, and later on I'm going to be switching to magenta to finish off with blue or indigo blue. I'm still learning about watercoloring, but what I do know is that I like the hard edges that I get when I stop my brush and in between colors. Now, if you are the type of person that do not like that, then I suggest you switch to a bigger brush and that you act very quickly on a very wet surface. My silhouettes are very well protected, so I can go over the whole image with the paint without worrying. You can also remove some of the paint by rolling a damp brush around the area and wiping it on a dry towel, much like I'm doing right now. One thing to remember is that watercolor tends to get very light when it dries. So if you want deeper, richer colors, you might have to add 1 or even 2 coats over your initial base coat. To dry my piece, I use a blow dryer on the cool setting and not a heat tool because I'm afraid that it's going to react with the frisket and I don't want to melt the frisket. Now that it's fully dry, I'm going to add a second coat because I do want bolder colors. And I'm going to also change the color of my yellow. I find this yellow a little too light, so I'm going to go more towards the ochre yellow. Here's what it looks like when I'm finished with the second coat. As you can see, this is still wet, so the colors are very, very vibrant. And once everything is dry, I'm removing the liquid frisket. I just simply get it started with my nail, and then I keep rolling until the whole thing is done. It's very easy to remove, and it's always so much fun. Make sure that you get all the stars too. You just simply have to feel with your fingers. You'll feel the little bumps, so make sure that you remove all of them. I'm going to be writing in a very messy handwriting inside the shape. So I'm placing the stencil over the form and I'm writing as if the stencil's not there. So I'll just keep on writing until I hit the border of the stencil, but making sure that I go over the stencil, and that way I know that my writing is going to be filling all of the shape.
The writing is a personal message to myself, so it's not really meant for other people to read, but I find it's a great way to personalize your piece. To add a quote to my piece, I decided to use the Fine to Balance stencil with light molding paste. Of course, the white of the modeling paste does not stand out very well against the yellow background, so I decided to replace the stencil once everything was dry and go over it with iridescent deep gold. Yes, over yellow, because that will stand out. This was mistake number one. Mistake is a term that was coined by one of my subscribers to describe those little subtleties and learning experiences you go through when you create. They're not really mistakes, they are just opportunities to learn. So I am going to replace the stencil once again over that quote, that gold quote, and I'm going to go over with some carbon black paint, and I think it's going to look a lot better. Yep, that looks better. This is the Leaf Stem Trio, also by Donna Downey Studios, and I'm going to be using, again, light modeling paste to add some leaves on the top and as well as the bottom right corner. And unfortunately, I forgot to film the next step, but basically I let the modeling paste dry, then I put the stencil back over these shapes and used a foam applicator to apply the iridescent gold paint over the leaves. Yes, gold paint, but this time it's going to stand out well against the blue color on the canvas. So it's all good. I had a bit of leftover gold paint, so I'm spritzing some water on it, and with a small paintbrush I'm going to flick over the canvas to create some gold stars. I didn't add too many. I wanted this to be very subtle. I didn't want to take away from any of the other elements. And I'm going to be adding some black paint sort of to frame everything. And I think it makes the whole painting come alive. I'm also rubbing some black on the leaves to sort of antique them a little bit.
And there it is. This piece was a lot of fun to make. I learned a lot along the way. That canvas has a lot of meaning for me. When I saw the stencil, I knew I had to have it. I love the message behind the Crescent Moon yoga position, so that's why I decided to write a message to myself. It's kind of like a mantra inside that shape. I'm going to give you a close-up of the different parts. I love the stars created by the masking fluid. Such a nice contrast. I ended up adding some black paint to frame everything. It needed it, and it also helped the colors pop. And the gold leaves, which I muted a little bit with some black. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have learned a few things along the way. Next week, Denise will have a project for you, and don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss out on any of our videos we post every week. We also have a Facebook group, so you can check the link in the description below and go visit our group and like, so again that you are always in the know. There are other things posted to that Artist Gang Facebook group, not just the Tuesday videos. There are other projects made by the team. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye!